Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition. I don't even know what it is. Our fourth edition of the newest, hottest sales podcast, Sales Unscripted. My name is Bryan Neal.
And I am Margaret Henney. Hey, everyone.
We're here every week. We're so glad that you're here. Something new, something fun. You might follow Margaret on social media, on LinkedIn. You might follow me on LinkedIn or listen to my other podcast, the Advanced Selling Podcast. We were kind of pushed to do this. We did a webinar together, and people said, you two have good energy. You should start a podcast.
Yeah, so we had to give the people what they wanted.
That's what you do.
So
I mean,
that's
what, when people are clamoring, with artists for new material. That's what happens with us. They were clamoring, so we gave them what they wanted.
Exactly. Put out a new album, write the book. So, yeah, we're out here doing it, guys. So we're excited to be back. Okay, so I have to pick your brain just really, really quickly.
You can.
This will be coming out a little bit later, guys, but Bryan just got back from being a referee in the Super Bowl.
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I have to say that, okay, I told your wife, Steph, this. Yeah. So from like maybe the very first time that I met you, you were talking about goals, setting your goals. You gave examples of what yours were, and one of them was to eventually be a referee for the Super Bowl.
It was.
And so I got like a little teary-eyed for you.
Thank you.
I
got teary-eyed for me. Thank you. It's just... for the backstory, I wrote. I'm gonna go to the whole thing, but my football coach just taught me to write goals on index cards.
Oh yeah.
And when I was 19, I wrote down all these goals, 4 major ones. But the last one was I wanted to referee the Super Bowl by the time I was 51.
And how old are you?
52. So I missed. I failed.
Stop.
Failed. I didn't fail. No, but it's really crazy. But it's a dream come true. I've got a real connection to the game. And I mean, it's just amazing. And what everybody said is true. It's kind of like planning a wedding. So you have lots of family and friends and tickets and reservations and stuff you do. Then the game happens. And then the game is over. And you wake up Monday to go, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
I literally have no idea what just happened. So I'm still in taking it all in mode. But it was the greatest. It was just such a great experience. And seeing my family in the stands, that was the choke moment for me where I was like,
I bet. I love that they all got to go.
It's the best. It was awesome.
I have to tell you too. So this is a weird thing, me being a Hoosier like you.
Yes.
There are sometimes not that many famous Hoosiers. At least people might think that, right?
No.
So whenever there is one, I like really grab onto them. I'll be like, ooh, did you know they're from Indiana? Or they went to school in Indiana. So I did that with you. I texted everyone. I was this guy is refereeing the Super Bowl. He is my friend. We're doing a podcast together, and he's from Indiana. And then it just spread like wildfire.
Isn't that fun?
It was so fun.
I love it. Yeah,
it's part of being proud.
I'd be near the fame, not famous, but in the fame. Yeah. But the people listening can watch, if they watch the Super Bowl, they could go back and Google it. There was a little scuffle.
It was.
Kind of was right in the middle, like a fight.
It was a kerfuffle.
I was kind of stuck. It was a kerfuffle. And one of my clients sent me a picture. He goes, hey man, is this you? I'm like, yeah, I'm the one without the helmet on, dude. There's like 10 6'7" players around me. Yeah. And that's one of the things you do. You just referee on instinct. So thank you. It was very, very fun.
That's awesome.
And so those of you who listen to Sales Unscripted, now you've got a little inside path, right? A little behind the scenes.
And also it's a sales thing. Well, it's anything that you do in business, but a great sales thing. Write down your goals. There is a magic to that. And
there is.
You've told me that. I've had other wonderful mentors tell me that. And I was kind of like, whatever. If you're into woo, you can call it manifesting. If you're not, you can just call it goal setting. It's kind of the same thing though, but there's like a magic to writing it down, stating what it is, and looking at it every day. And obviously it worked. So,
I love that. And it's just so interesting. I was just taught that, so I just did it. So I never thought about it. And then as I got older and started to teach others, people were kind of like, oh, that's kind of corny. That's kind of dorky. I'm like, is it? Yeah. Like, it works for me. And I know not everybody does that.
Yeah.
But it's more fun. It's also more fun to stay there connected.
Totally.
To write a goal down when you're 19 for something to happen when you're 51.
Yeah.
And then have it happen that close is like goosebumpy.
Oh my gosh, it's totally goosebumpy.
goosebumpy.
It's like you said, it's manifesting.
It just is. And so I'm with you. on that. I think what Margaret said is true.
Yeah.
You got to write stuff down. What's the worst case that happens?
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
There's
who cares?
Someone's like, God, I wasted all that time writing my goals down. I wish I had that time back. No one's ever going to say that.
No, exactly. So,
all right.
Okay, here's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, do it.
This is, how do you like that really natural transition?
It's beautiful. That's what we do at the podcast. We transition so naturally.
So this comes up a lot for me and my team and did in the past. And so I was like, ooh, this might be a really good one to tackle is when you're in sales, the idea of whoever you're talking to, this untruth that you have to know everything about their business in order to be a great resource for them. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of want to dig into the details of that because It is going to be maybe different for some people, right? Like, for me, the biggest thing though, just to remember is you just have to know your business. You have to be able to, consult with them, but just ask the questions.
Do you think so? This is a new podcast, so people are getting to know us.
Okay.
We have a really great, very great friendship relationship work thing. It's really good.
Yeah.
We're very different.
Yes, it's
right?
true.
We're different genders. We probably see the world a little differently.
Yep.
And we have different. We're from different generations.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, and I'm the old guy, so I'm the Gen Xer.
Okay.
You're not a Gen Xer, are you?
No, I am not.
No, you're a millennial.
I'm
right?
technically, I'm like an old
yeah,
millennial.
that's a name. My wife is too. It's geriatric millennial. Have you
know
heard that
what?
term? Geriatric. That's a horrible name, isn't it?
I will fight this. No, I don't like that is a thing, because also, not to get too personal for a little bit, but so I'm 37, so
right.
I'm right on the age of a millennial, or right on the edge of being a millennial.
Yeah.
Also after the age of 35, if I did get pregnant at any point, this is really personal, it would also be called a geriatric pregnancy. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I just gave the finger.
Well, that's part of what we do around here. We're unscripted, and we're going for the explicit rating. So
X rating, sorry guys.
You can also
I don't like the term geriatric as a 37-year-old. That's all I'm saying.
I agree. Well, I'm like, who the hell says these things?
Yeah.
Who names it? Who thinks I've got a name?
22-year-olds.
Yeah, where's the naming convention of the generations and stuff? Like, I got an idea here. Let's call them geriatric millennials. Well, I agree with you. It's a silly name. But I do have a generational question.
Yeah,
now, we broad stereotype generations. I do my own Gen X. I'm a total Gen X guy, like independent rogue cowboy, raised by wolves, latchkey kid.
Love it.
Trying to fill the spaces in your broken family. That's Gen X. So millennials are very, very coachable. I love that about your generation, constantly wanting to learn. Gen Xers kind of think we got it all figured out. We'll figure it all out, right?
Yeah.
But there's another trait that's interesting to me, and that's what I want to ask you about that's related to this topic.
Okay.
There's a fear, I think, a broad general stereotype, a fear of not knowing something or not preparing enough or not being ready that I honestly think is almost a pretty broad generalization of the millennial group. That's where I see it the most. I don't see Gen X people I work with worry about this as much. All millennials seem to worry about it that I work with. What do you think about that?
I would agree with
broad?
that. I think, there's always going to be exceptions no matter what, right? But I would say kind of generally that's probably true. And I don't know if that has to do with like starting off in your career, and maybe this is just kind of where we are in our lives, but like you're proven something.
Yes.
I have a seat at the table. Yes. I've had just enough experience that I can, talk intelligently, but maybe not enough, but there's a lot of that trying to hustle to prove that you belong. And so you're like, I don't want it to seem like I don't have the answers. You think?
Yeah, no, that's how I see it. Yeah. I think this, and again, it's always risky to broad stereotype generations, but I just see this happen where the Gen X people, we kind of don't give a shit. If I don't know, I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's so easy. It's so natural. I don't feel bad about that. I don't feel like, I just failed somebody, or I'm like, I just don't know.
But do you think that has come with age and experience?
That's what I don't know.
Or do you think you've always been that way?
I don't know. Because I think back, and I also don't remember when I was younger, even in the careers in my 20s and stuff.
Yeah.
I'd just be like, I have no idea. Or that's a great question. I don't know. And you got to be careful not to filter things through your personal lens too. That's just me. But it's just an interesting trait. I see it. There's another thing I wonder. Now, this is off the generations.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about this one.
Go ahead.
So we're talking about preparing. Sometimes I wonder if preparing is a subconscious internal resistance to the actual job of selling or reaching outbound. And because I'm nervous to do that, I'm delaying it as long as I can. It's like getting ready to jump off the high dive.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to get everything ready, right? I'm going to get my feet ready, wipe my hands down. I'm going to look again. I'm going to take another step back and get a drink of water.
Yep.
I'm like, putting off the inevitable that might be scary to me. What do you think there's any correlation there?
Absolutely. Well, and it's also an illusion that you can do enough preparing that nothing will surprise you in the conversation.
Beautiful.
And of course it's going to, because you're in it with someone else. You cannot predict everything that they're going to say, which is what makes sales and relationships. It's just exciting in general, right? And so, you can certainly do a little bit of prep. You want to know your stuff. Own your stuff. You can't own their stuff and how they're going to react, what they're going to say. The only way to find it out is to have the conversation and to ask the questions.
Yes.
And I'll prepare for this. Here's something that I do because I was a little nervous about this at first too. Let's use maybe just kind of a random example. Let's someone who is in financial planning.
Yep.
I have a general idea of what they do. I didn't know the specifics. I didn't know what they struggled with. I didn't know kind of their day-to-day necessarily. So let's say I'm talking to somebody about that, and I would say, hey, do you mind if I ask you what might be kind of a really stupid question?
Love it.
I'm like, I'm just going to slow down here for a second because I know you know your business and I know mine, but I got to build a little bit of a bridge to you. Can I ask some dumb questions?
Yes.
If you say that, they will say, absolutely. And usually they'll say, there's no dumb questions.
Yes.
And they love it.
They do.
If you assume everything about it, you're probably going to put your foot in your mouth.
Always.
So.
Always. See, what's brilliant about this, what people don't realize is when you are interested in other humans, it feels good to them.
Totally.
When you're interested in someone else and what they do, it's good to them. It feels good. I don't care how long they've been doing it, how successful what they are, whatever measure you want to use. If someone shows interest in you, it feels good. It just does for the most part. And so this idea of having to know everything about someone takes away that ability to connect and have them feel good because of my interest in what they do.
Yeah.
And there is an element where I do show some interest by doing some preparation, like you said.
Yeah.
Even just knowing someone's in the financial advisory world and understanding that at a core level.
Yeah.
But then soon getting into the, can I learn about you and what you do and how you do it? I'm personally like a curious, like geeky guy. Like my dad used to play this game we'd call how's it made, what's it made, which is now a TV show that I love how it's made. But we'd lay there, I'd be like 5 years old, and I'd like look around my bedroom, and I'd be like, how do they make lights? He's like, well, they take a little chemical, they do this little spark thing, and I love that stuff.
I also love that your dad indulged that because a lot of parents would be like, it just is.
Oh, no.
Because they just don't want the questions to happen. But that is how you parent a curious child to get them to be a good learner too.
And that's also how you parent if you're a hippie in the 60s and smoke a lot lot of pot.
Shout out to
Mr.
Make for
Neal.
some
really, really good conversations with your kid to stretch the brain, which is true. It's really good. No, but I think that's a thing that we miss sometimes in selling. We realize that if we think we're over-prepared, and I loved what you said, Margaret, you said you will put your foot in your mouth.
Yeah.
And it might even be worse than that. If you try to pretend you know something that you don't, it's always better to take energy. One of the energies we always teach our clients is the energy of curiosity.
Yeah.
Some people are natural at it. Some people are not. Either way, you can prepare by preparing questions that you would go ask someone about them and their world and their business. It's really, really good.
Yeah, yeah. And it's exciting, too, because you get to learn about them.
That's the best part,
I think is really interesting. And
I do, too.
Even if you did, let's say you did all of your research, you learned about generally what that business or role is.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that you have insights into that particular person or that particular business, because it is going to be different. What's going on for you? Are you growing? Is business... Because you might make an assumption. I've done this before.
Yes.
I've been like, oh, man, I bet more business is always a good thing. Yeah. And they said,
no.
No.
Yes.
No, I'm too busy as it is. I need the right kind of business. I need, whatever. And then immediately I'm like, God, I'm a dumbass. So you can't do those assumptions. You got to dial it back and ask the questions.
Yes, you're not a dumbass. Stop saying that.
Thank you.
Stop thinking that.
Okay.
Easy for me to say. Exactly the same thing. What about this? Do you think this is also reflective of my experience reffing the Super Bowl this past week. Do you think it is possible to over-prepare?
Absolutely.
Me too.
Yeah,
Me
absolutely.
Too.
Well, because there's something about the magic of showing up and trusting yourself, especially if you've, it's all about doing, this is also going to sound woo, doing the work on yourself, okay, you go to blind zebra sales training, you learn your core tactics, you kind of have that foundation, and then you just kind of have to run with it at some point, right? Like the high dive, you can only prepare so much before it's like, hey man, you got to jump off in the water.
You do.
So, and if you do it too much, you're a little too in your head and just not present in the conversation. And you got to be present in the conversation to show up with somebody else. Otherwise, it's a monologue and not a dialogue.
I just had a client of mine this morning talk to me about this. So do you know who Sarah Blakely is?
I don't.
She's one of my favorite humans. And her wife, Jessie Etzler, or her husband, rather, Jesse Etzler also. She's the founder of Spanx.
Oh, I do know.
Everybody knows Sarah.
Yes,
She's
yes,
awesome.
yes.
She's great. Great story, phenomenal businesswoman. But one of my clients, we were doing this little drill today, and she said, hey, could I throw something on the agenda for later in the year? I'm like, sure. She goes, can we do a failure session? Fail. I'm like, oh, okay. Tell me about that. She goes, well, I learned this from Sarah Blakely. They do this at Spanx. They get together and they have a fail celebration meeting.
Okay.
Where they take their failures, they present their failure. Here's what I was going to do. I was talking to this big client. I did this. They said this. I said that. They told me to go to hell. And I lost this big, huge account. And here's what I learned from it. And everyone claps like, yay, you failed. Right? It's like that. I don't know if they actually clap. I guess that knowing how Sarah is.
Yeah.
But you can't do that if you don't get enough what you perceive as risky opportunities.
Yeah.
If you just stay safe with all these things, over prepare, make sure you know every single thing, coddle the opportunity, you're never, ever going to get the growth that comes from screwing one up.
Yep.
You know, and so that is another element of this I think that's really important. There's a book, have you ever read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell?
Isn't
it awesome?
I'm obsessed with Malcolm.
Yes, he's one of my faves too. So there's the 10,000 hour rule that's in the book Outliers. If you haven't read that book, you need to read that book.
Yep.
But that's what it talks about in that chapter. Is 10,000 hours of practice is typically what most people that do anything really well do.
To be like an expert.
That's it. Yeah. Whatever. And so you only get practice in selling.
Yeah.
I mean, you can practice with your team. I'm all for that. But the actual, real practice comes, the reps, the opportunities come out there. And so if you use preparation as a hindrance to that, to push that off, you're going to diminish the amount of reps you get, and you're going to delay your 10,000 hour rule, and you're never going to be as good as you could have been.
Yeah. What this actually comes from a lot, and I kind of struggle with this a little bit, is this idea of preparing or wanting to be perfect, do it perfectly, results in inaction, right? Which, and of course, not doing something is a choice in and of itself, but it actually is something that comes from, perfectionists. A lot of times I think of a perfectionist as someone who is super high strung, but they do stuff really well.
Yes.
I never thought of myself as a perfectionist, but I am, but it is a little bit paralyzing to me.
Yes.
Like for me, a personal example is I won't clean the apartment unless I can do everything. I'm talking windows, blinds, counters, dusting, instead of being like, maybe I should just do the laundry because it's laying right there. Like do one thing, so it's kind of the same thing in sales, right? If you're like trying to do all this preparing exactly what I want to say, I'm going to, assume all of this, it results in inaction when you should just say, it's not going to be perfect anyway. I have a lot to learn from whoever I'm going to talk to. Just launch yourself into that and embrace the messiness that might come along with it.
Interesting. Not talking about the messiness of your house.
Well, that too.
Right?
Yeah, that has to also be embraced.
You ever see the show Hoarders?
Yes, and that is a great way to feel better about yourself.
No kidding. Holy shit.
Which is so awful for me to say. I know it's a
all
real
reality
sickness,
TV is.
but
I know.
I'm
it's
like,
hard.
I'm
fine.
great. I've got it.
I've got it. I've got every newspaper since 1994. I'm fine. It's no big deal. I've got,
Yeah. But tactically for people, I have to say that is a great trick of mine anyway, when I kind of want to soften the blow and ask something that I do feel a little embarrassed about, which probably there's no reason to, but I love kind of prepping it with, hey, can I ask you a real dumb question? Because I just want to know more about you.
Yes. And I like verbalizing the feeling of curiosity.
Yeah.
Now, you can't say I'm curious before every question, but that's a great way to get yourself in that mode. Like, I'm going to be curious here. It's just say, I'd really like to learn about this. I really want to understand this. It's a really, really good thing to do.
Yeah.
All right. So final word.
Final word?
Yeah.
Oh, stay curious.
Stay curious. I like it. I'll do a final word. Go. Just go.
I love
when
it.
it's time, you're like, okay, it's time to go. Like at some point in that Super Bowl, I had to walk out on that field.
Go time.
Like it's go time. Here we go.
Yeah.
And all of us will be faced with that. So just think about that. Ramping up your go time, being curious. And I think you'll find that your maybe propensity to over prepare will diminish a bit, and you'll have much better experiences in your sales career.
Awesome.
That's it.
Cool. See you guys next time.
Okay. Unscripted sales. Sales Unscripted. We're learning. Sales Unscripted podcast. See you next time.
Over and out.
Cheers. Bye.